I feel like it has been forever since I sat in this chair and did any kind of video. I've been vlogging, and then my whole house got sick, except for the adults. I mean, we got colds, but my kids got like legitimately sick, like 103 fevers, passed from the oldest down to the youngest. My sister got married at the end of September, was insane. And so here we are, October 3rd, maybe a little bit later, depending on what day it is that I upload this, hopefully today. I've just been busy. So we're finally gonna get to my September wrap up. Despite everything, I did really well this month in my opinion. I read 13 books, 3 graphic novels, 10 books. Did I math that correctly? The world may never know. I'll know when I edit, but I think that's right. We should get into it, right? I've got my makeup on. I'm a little bit older than a 20-something. I read some YA. Let's get into it. As you guys may remember in the past, I like to go in 2 chunks, my graphic novels and then my novels, and I like to go from least favorite to most favorite. Let's get into it, right? Of my graphic novels, I read 1 4-star and 2 5 stars, which is pretty great in my opinion. My 4-star novel is Bingo Love by T. Franklin. This is a story. It's a standalone, so it's not a series, which is what I normally read in graphic novels. It's a standalone love story about 2 black women in their youth who realize that they're in love with each other. Their family are very religious and they know that their love is forbidden, and when they're found out, they're pulled apart, and it fast forwards through the lives they end up leading without each other until they find each other again. So it's a standalone about true love. Obviously there's queer rep in this, there's diversity. I really liked it. The end is a little weird. It's not really a spoiler, but they throw in a little bit of sci-fi at the end that comes out of nowhere because the whole rest of it is very contemporary and it's hard to buy it. And I do wish, the reason it's not a 5-star, because it did make me cry and I did like it. I wish that it was a little longer, and if they're gonna pull the sci-fi aspect at the end, they probably should have taken it through the whole story. Small qualms. I think it was a pretty strong graphic novel. Pretty short. As always, I recommend checking it out if it sounds interesting to you. My first 5-star read is the graphic novel Kim and Kim Volume 1. It is a sci-fi story about 2 women, a transgender woman and a queer woman. They're like bounty hunters more or less, and they work together. Like if you remember in, I believe it was my library haul, I talked about how when I looked it up on Goodreads, it said something about how it was like Superbad meets, I don't remember, I'll link the video down below so you can check it out, but I had high hopes going in and I really enjoyed it. It has kind of a saga feel to it, but it's a little more like violent, which I don't know how to, I'm doing a really good job. Quality. It's cool. Check it out. It's nothing new, it's nothing mind-blowing, but I really enjoyed the art and I liked the storyline, and I have the second one and I'm going to read it this month hopefully, so I do intend to carry through with the series if it keeps up. And my last graphic novel that was also a 5-star read is El Deafo by CC Bell. I talked a lot about it in my Contemporary-a-thon vlogs, so I'm just going to breeze through that. It's about a little girl who Bonnie basically, and she goes deaf in her youth, and it's kind of the story of her growing up with her disability and how that affects her and her friendships and her relationships with her family. It was really kind of eye-opening to what it's like to have hearing loss. Obviously it's not the same for everyone, but I never really considered the fact that being deaf doesn't necessarily mean volume will help. One of the things I learned in here, which may make me sound kind of dumb that I didn't know that, but like there's a few instances in which someone talks louder or they turn the volume up on something, and Cece, the main character, is like, I don't hear better, I hear the same nonsense at a louder decibel, and I thought that was really cool. It hit me pretty close to the chest if you saw my vlog, because I have a special needs kid, and the dynamic of him and friendship in school is kind of something I'm new to dealing with. It breaks my heart a little bit to see him interact with other kids. So to see another character with a disability have to interact with neurotypical or non-diverse kids, I guess I could say, it impacted me. So it was a 5-star read for me. And that's it for our graphic novels, and we're gonna move right on to the novel. I read 1 2-star, 1 3-star, 3 4-stars, and 5 5-stars. My first book, my only 2-star, is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I'm not even really gonna get into it because I complained about it a lot in my Contemporary-a-thon vlog, so feel free to watch through those if you haven't already and see my real thoughts on it. But I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't for me in the moment that I'm in right now. It was about mental illness and eating disorders, and I think the author went about it a really weird way, which happens a lot, I guess, in literary fiction, which is why I don't read a whole lot of literary fiction anymore. I used to read a lot of it, but then I'd read slow. It'd take me like a month to get through a book because I just wasn't really... So yeah, 2-star for The Vegetarian. I never thought I'd pick it up, but it was available on audiobook, and I wanted an audiobook for Contemporary-a-thon, and that is how I ended up reading a book that I didn't care for, but also didn't DNF simply because it was short. Truth. My one and only 3-star was Roomies by Christina Lauren. Again, another Contemporary-a-thon read, so I won't go too far into it, but it's about a girl who has a distant crush on a busker who plays a guitar at the subway she goes to, and she kind of stalks him for a little while before she gets him a job, essentially, but he's from Ireland and his work visa, he doesn't have a work visa, he's just not supposed to be there anymore. They decide to get married so that he can get a visa to work for her relatives, and it's like the drama that ensues as they actually fall in love. It was non-believable, but cute. So I gave it a 3-star. Moving on, I've got 3 4-stars, and we will start with A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I didn't think I would like this book at all. I don't know why. I wanted to like it, but I didn't think I would, and it turns out I did. It's a thriller, more or less. Sherlock Holmes and Watson's descendants, like I think they're the great-great-grandparents, if not great-grandparents, the original Sherlock and Watson. It's about the two coming together, these descendants, at a school in which there's murder, and then they get tangled up in it and have to solve the crime. So it's a thriller. I liked it. I like Sherlock Holmes. I think that I'm gonna continue with the series. Not anytime soon because I'm booked out with my TBR. I'm booked out. It sounds really important. Like I've got things I gotta do that I get paid for. But I will eventually get to it. I've just got a lot in front of it. Now the next one was my first read, might have been my second read of September. It's one of the ones that I keep talking about ever since I started BookTube. I'm like, I have to get to this book. I've owned it since February. I need to read it. I'm so glad I finally did. I gave it 4 stars. I'm excited to see where it goes. And that is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I love fantasy. I love fae fantasy. I'm not entirely shocked that I like this. There are mixed reviews because it's true that not a lot happens for most of the beginning of the book. It's a lot of building, character, world. When you're like talking about a book that's going to have multiple in a series, it's not abnormal to have that. And if you do the building and the character development well enough, it's not boring, and I wasn't bored by this book at all. The ending obviously has action because they want you to want the next book, and I did go ahead and pre-order The Wicked King, I believe is what it's called. It's not my favorite fantasy, but I really dug it. I'm excited to see where the series goes. This is old news. Almost everyone's read The Cruel Prince at this point, I'm pretty sure. But now I can say I have too. And my third and final 4th-star read is part of a read-along, a 3-month-long read-along. You probably know what I'm talking about, and that is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. I really like this series. It is not my absolute favorite series. I gave A Darker Shade of Magic 4 stars as well. They're like 4.5 stars. I think the problem I have is that they go on a little too long. V.E. Schwab is very character heavy in all of her writing, and while I think that's great because it's one of my favorite types of writing, it can move a little slow because there's a lot of build for a little action. And it can work, and you'll see later I bring it up again. I really love V.E. Schwab's work. I know she's like a hot topic on BookTube. Almost everybody loves her, and I think she's really, really good at what she does. The craft is definitely, she was meant to write. I won't get into the plot too much because if you haven't read A Darker Shade of Magic, then this would spoil it, but you get more characters in this. I just started A Conjuring of Light, so we're in the final. I just looked at it. It's such a thick book. I'm a little intimidated by its size. I'm so glad that Spence put together this readathon so that I would be forced to read them and find V.E. Schwab, because for those of you that haven't seen on my Instagram or my Twitter, I got to go to a V.E. Schwab event this week, and I met her and had her sign almost all my books, and it was really exciting to hear her talk. So I'm a fan of V.E. Schwab for life. I'll read everything that she puts out ever. This was still a 4-star though. First 5-star, I'm gonna get through quickly because it was a reread, and the only reason I reread it is because it was available through Overdrive as like the group month read because of the anniversary, and I kept seeing it every time I open up Overdrive, and finally I was like, you know what? You got me. And that is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I'm not even gonna get into it. If you're on here, you've probably read or at least seen the movie. I will always love Harry Potter. I know there's a lot of problematic elements that come up now that we're 25 years from publication, 20 years of publication. It's bound to happen. Writing doesn't age well because it's a product of its time and it's set forever. You can't change what's been published. That's my opinion on it. That's all I've got to say about that. It will always be a 5-star despite its flaws because of the nostalgia. I'll always be a Harry Potter fan. The next 2 5-star reads are were part of the Contemporary-a-thon for me, so I, again, will briefly go over them, but that's Summer of Salt by Katrina Leno and Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin. I really loved both of these. I was happy to love this one, and I was shocked to love this one. Summer of Salt has like some magical realism. It reads very contemporary, but interwoven through it is some really fantastical elements in order to tell a pretty hard and harrowing story about a teenager, what she went through kind of alone despite her twin. It's told from the story of the twin that wasn't going through the difficult thing, finding out about it. Does that make sense? It was so good. And despite the hard topic, it was a fun read. I really, really have a soft spot for magical realism. I will always, always have a soft spot for magical realism. So 5-star for Katrina Leno. It's the second book I read by her, but it was my first that I enjoyed. And I intend to read what she puts out and what she has out. Young Jane Young by Gabrielle Zevin took me by surprise. It's about a woman that has an affair with a politician and the aftermath of that choice in her life and her mother's life and her grandmother's life and her daughter's life later, and you see all those perspectives and they're told differently, and the voices are so specific and unique to one another. The impact and how they proceed in life is so fascinating and heartbreaking, and I really expected it to be a lot lighter than it was, and I absolutely loved it. The next 5-star, my second to last 5-star, should come as no surprise if you've watched my last wrap-up, but that is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. I am in love with this series. I set a goal to like read it in, I want to say 3 days, and I did it. And that for me is very difficult, but I like just fly through these books. Again, it's not magical realism, it's straight up fantasy, but it's set in like modern day world, so it kind of reads like magical realism. I won't repeat myself because I just talked about that for like 5 minutes, but again, I'm behind on this series. Everybody's read it and or decided it's not for them already because it's not new. I'm glad I found it. I'm glad that I'm going through it. I want to read the next 2. I probably won't read either of them in October, but I think they'll be good in November. I just want to know what happens, and now there's a show or a movie coming out, and so now I really need to get to them before that happens. Can't tell you much about the plot because you'd have to read the first book for this one to make any sense at all. I love Ronan. I love Gansey. I love Blue. There's really not a character in this book, even the bad characters, that I don't love. This is what happens. I get speechless because I don't know what else to say except that this is really good. Finally, my favorite book of September. I've already spoken about her and met her this week, and that is Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I'm not an annotator. I like to read a book and just enjoy it. And I decided to annotate this one so you can see all my tabs about characters, about lines I liked, about plot points that blew my mind or I didn't see coming. Tabbed it up because I think she's one of my current favorite character writers, and I like character books. Hello, my name is Kaylee. I like character books. I don't even think I started my video off with, hey, welcome to Dog-Eared Page. So welcome to my channel. Dog-Eared Page. Vicious. I wanted to read it before I met V.E. Schwab because going to the event was like a last minute decision because it's hard for me to go out without the baby, and it was going to be tailing the weekend of my sister's wedding, so I knew we'd be exhausted. I knew the baby would be tapped out. I knew I'd be tapped out. And like last minute I was like, you know what? Let's live a little. When's the next time that she's going to be in town that I can meet her? So I bought my book for a ticket, and I was like, let's read Vicious real fast. My husband bought it for me on our anniversary, which was 2 weeks ago. I read it that week, despite my sister's wedding. It's so different from A Darker Shade of Magic in terms of plot, but again, it's very strong in who the people are. She's known for having like morally great characters, and that's kind of what I put a lot of tabs in because I'm very fascinated by that concept where you don't really root for anyone until suddenly the end and you realize you've been rooting for someone all along. Such a fascinating story. It's about two guys that are friends. They're med students. One of them decides his thesis is going to be on extraordinary people, aka people that have superpowers. He finds that in order to get superpowers, you have to have a near-death experience. So the two dudes die and come back and have superpowers specific to them. And then it becomes a struggle of power and revenge. You move from like present to 10 years previous when they were in med school. Characters are great. I can't wait to get into Vengeful, which I picked up for the signing. If you haven't checked out Vicious, but you kind of liked A Darker Shade of Magic, or you did like A Darker Shade of Magic, or you read anything by Victoria Schwab, but you haven't read this, do it. Go read it. It's a good book. That's all I have to say. You can tell. Alright guys, that is it for me. That is my September wrap-up. 13 books is not that bad. I'm impressed. I always get to the end of the month and I look back through my Goodreads and I'm shocked at how much I got done because it never feels like that much. But that's it. September was a great month. October should also be a great month. Let me know how your September went down below. If you've read any of these books and you have opinions on them, let me know below. That's really all I've got. And I will be filming some tag videos, so they'll be coming soon. I've been a little bit behind, obviously, as I said in the beginning, so I'm trying to pick up the pace. I'm doing some more vlogging. We'll see how that goes. Otherwise, that's it for me. Thank you for being here. Click the like button if you like this video. Subscribe if you're new here. I will see you guys when I see you guys. Happy fall, happy October. Bye. Boop, 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 boop. Don't do it, don't do it. Okay, there we go. As my hair is driving me crazy, something's in my face. Alright, let's do this.